I was 52 when I trained to become a yoga teacher.
So you joined Bikram Yoga and you ended up running a yoga studio for 14 years.
So I was so in love with yoga.
The definition of the word yoga is non-distraction. It is your soul completely by itself.
Yeah.
Soul and mind aligned together.
Correct.
While practicing yoga, energy actually is derived from breathing.
When you do yoga, the energy is different. No, you don't not necessarily derive it from food, but it comes from your breath.
Namaskar, Mabuhay. I'm Aparna, back with The Soul Yatra Unfolds. This is in continuation with the series based on yoga. I have an exciting news today. So I thought, I'm in the Philippines. We keep talking about yoga from different, India becomes of course synonym to it, but globally it is well known. But in the Philippines, we've got numerous yoga practitioners as well as master teachers. I have someone very, very exciting here who is I would say a wholesome blend of an entrepreneur, a corporate woman, a yoga practitioner, teacher, and somebody who's also been a businesswoman. She had an interesting journey, I would say, and I will let her introduce yourself. Let's welcome Dinah Salonga, who's here with us today to share how her life transformed once she stumbled, that's what the word she used, when she stumbled into yoga. So over to Dinah. Welcome Dinah to Soul Yatra, and we're very excited to have you here today. And 21st June is the Yoga International Day. And so I've been trying to talk about this in reference to Philippines and how yoga has become quite familiar in Philippines, and how do we make it a day-to-day life in Philippines as well. So over to you. We'd love to hear from you about yourself, and we'll move forward with how your journey evolved with yoga.
Thanks, Aparna, first of all, for inviting me to your podcast. It's a privilege and an honor to share my experience with your audience. Anyway, my journey into yoga started around 2005. I was then managing an IT company, my own IT company. So we had an office in Makati, and then one day there was a yoga studio that opened right below my office.
And which year was this?
2005.
Wow.
2005. So that was at the time, yoga was not as popular as it is now. No? There were a few studios. I think in the 70s, I think there were some who started doing yoga, Ashtanga mostly, right? But in small places, not really a studio as we know it now, but they mostly practice in homes and they had teachers. But at that time, hot yoga became a craze, Bikram yoga in particular. So the studio that opened below my office was a Bikram yoga studio, the first one in the Philippines. At that time, I was going to the gym. I always do some kind of physical activity, mainly because I have to watch my weight, right? And then one of my good friends said, let's try the yoga studio, because the studio opened. And it's right below your office. So I said, okay, then it's convenient, right? So I went, and in my first class, I think I almost died. It was so difficult, practicing with the heat and with all the poses, and everything was unfamiliar to me. And at the time, I think we were less than 5 in class. So the teacher was
So just 5?
Yeah, very few people, because it was just starting. And so the teacher had all the attention on you, and so it was even more difficult because he would nitpick.
You can't dodge.
Correct. So nitpick every pose. You have to do it properly. So I did it for maybe a week. I feel maybe 3 times, something like that, every other day. And then I got hooked. I loved it. I super loved it, to the point I gave up my gym membership and just did yoga almost every day.
Wow. And this was 2005,
Yes,
right?
2005.
And you mentioned that you were working at that time, right?
Yeah, I was managing my IT company.
But before that, I would want you to also let the audience know you worked for Oracle at one point of time.
Yes, I was actually the first employee of Oracle in the Philippines. That was in 1991.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can already guess my age. But by that time, I've been working for a while already. So I started my career in information technology. So I was a programmer at the time. It was still called programmer, and then I became a DBA. So I was working for the International Rice Research Institute in Los Baños. We also have a couple of Indians there, by the way. And I think Erie was the number 2 customer of Oracle here. So when they opened, they could not find any employees. They had
Because
to.
this kind of resource was difficult at that
Yes,
time.
yes,
to
because they
find.
were very new. So they spoke to my boss and said, can we hire Dinah? And we can just hire her replacement. So we'll make sure that, or rather train her replacement. So that was the arrangement. So
Thank you.
my boss allowed me to move to
Awesome.
Oracle. Yeah.
Awesome. So now coming back to, I'm very curious to know, and I'm sure our audience is. So you joined Bikram Yoga, and you ended up running a yoga studio for 14 years,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So, and to run a yoga studio, I'm assuming you would have got certified and you would have,
Yes.
got really deeper into it.
Yes.
So tell us quickly a little about that, so how did that transition?
What brought me there? Yeah. So I was so in love with yoga, every day practicing. At some point, I would even be talking to the first timers, in the studio. Like when they come, I would, socialize with them, tell them about the experience, etc. And when I do my sales calls for my company, I end up talking about yoga instead of Oracle. So I said, what is this? Is this a sign maybe, that I should shift gears? And because people would notice, like, Dinah, you change, you look more relaxed. And so I said that because I'm doing yoga.
I'll pause here. So you bring out an important thing. You said people notice the change in you, and you just use the word, you look more relaxed, right?
Yeah.
And you attribute it to your practice of yoga for that?
Because that was the only thing I was doing at that time. That was different.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm doing yoga. And then they asked, oh, what's yoga? Because it was new, right? And then I would describe it. And then I will explain how I benefited from it. So I said, why am I selling yoga and not my products, right? So that prompted me to think about, I think I want to become a teacher. So I searched for a certification program. At that time, of course, the Bikram certification was open, but I wasn't very keen on doing that because I knew if I became a teacher, I wanted to go into business with it and not work
as a franchisee or
just set up my own studio.
Got it.
I had my own idea of what a studio should be like, what I want as a student, what I'm looking for in a studio is what I wanted to see, right? So I said, okay, I'll train to become a teacher and then I'll put up a business. So some of my classmates in the Bikram studio said, okay, we'll join you. So we will invest in the studio. So that's what I did.
That's how you
2010, I went into a teacher training program in Koh Samui. I researched...
Which is in Thailand?
Yes. So this was with the Absolute Hot Yoga school. So I trained there for a month. I told my business partners, I'm going to go on leave for a month because I'm going to train to become a yoga teacher. And then I will retire after. From the IT, right? From the IT. Because I want to go full-time into yoga eventually. So I prepared them. Anyway, I went on leave for a month and I told my employees, I'll be out for a month. You're on your own. Don't call me. No emails, no phones, unless you're dying.
Wow.
Because I wanted to focus.
You were so focused on that.
Because you have to. Otherwise, you cannot be distracted if you're going into certifications.
And in one of my episodes, I was sharing that the definition of the word yoga is non-distraction. It is your soul completely by itself.
Yeah.
Soul and mind aligned together.
Correct. So that's what happened. And then after that, a few months after I got certified, we opened our first branch here in BGC.
So, an interesting thing. So when you opened, how was the response?
Amazingly good.
Really?
Yes, we were constructing And the facilities were not yet complete. So we said, okay, let's offer some trial sessions.
Okay, and that's
Just so word of mouth, right? Our classes were packed. So we were offering only one class every day
wow.
for like, I forgot how much. But we didn't have floors. Our heaters were still on its way over. We didn't have bathrooms. But people were hungry and curious about yoga at that time.
So that brings to an interesting question. Now, since you said you were packed, you had so many students, have you had experiences where students shared with you how did they evolve or change or benefit with the influence of yoga in their life?
Oh, always, yeah. So, in fact, I mean, they didn't have to share. We could see it within an hour. They come from work because we were located in commercial business districts where the offices were. They would come so stressed, rushing. They're running to be on time for class because we were very strict in our studio. We did not accept any latecomers. When the
Okay.
class starts, that's it. The doors are closed and you can't go to class. So they have to make sure they're there when the teacher gets in. So they have to be on time. So they're always rushing, and they're all, stressed. Their face is always like that. And then when they come out, they're like,
So you just mentioned that they would come running, but even that 1 hour of practice, and you could see the difference. Do you have any experiences to share where it had deeper, profounder experience in their lives, either personal or corporate or whatever they were doing?
yeah. I remember distinctly one story. We had this student who wrote a letter to one of our teachers. I think this came maybe a year after she was already practicing with us. And she said, I'd like to express my thanks to you for being such a great teacher. The first time I tried yoga was in your class, in our studio in Ortigas. And that was the night that I wanted to kill myself.
What? So
Yeah,
because they practiced yoga,
yeah. That didn't happen. So because she did yoga that day, something must have shifted in her that, she decided not to end her life. But so she was telling that story eventually, afterwards. So I know how much it affected a lot of the students and even our teachers. We had a lot of students who eventually became teachers. And that's why we continued to do the business even when times were, a bit difficult. At some point, it became very competitive and challenging.
right? And did you have different age groups of people doing yoga?
Yes, yes. We had kids yoga at some point. We had prenatal yoga. We had yoga for the more dynamic people who loved the challenge of more difficult classes. We had yin yoga, which was geared more towards a more mature audience. We had chair yoga. So we tried to cater to as
all
many.
kinds. So,
Yeah.
according to your experience now, you've got such vast experience in this field. Do you think we should start with children at a younger age?
Good question. I think my experience in Yoga Plus, which was our studio, kids get introduced to some kind of movement practice, a little bit of discipline, in class. There is some music, there is a bit of play, there are some stories. So I think it's a good way for them to develop it. But I'm not sure whether they should be doing, very strict asana practices.
Got it. So
Yeah.
they could start with basics, some of the
Yeah.
basics which keeps them agile,
Mm-hmm.
body flexible, and as they grow, probably then they can embark on a journey which is more suitable to them or
Correct.
get deeper into it, right?
Yeah, although I've seen some children who are doing Ashtanga at a very young age. So
Yeah. I mean, of course, there'll always be exceptions, yeah, right?
Yeah.
And you just mentioned prenatal. Would you throw some light on that prenatal so that people who are seeing could get attracted or be a little more curious about can yoga be practiced at prenatal stage?
Yeah, so we had teachers who were qualified to do classes for pregnant women. And there are some restrictions and precautions, but pretty much, especially if they got pregnant and they were already practicing yoga prior to the pregnancy, they could easily transition. Some women just think about yoga when they get pregnant because they are probably more active, like runners and gym goers, and they cannot lift weights anymore when they get pregnant. So they try to search for a more how shall I say, not as demanding. They think
Yeah,
not as
yeah,
demanding.
yeah. But something which keeps them
Active.
active.
Yeah. So they go into yoga. So these are the kinds of clients that we get for those classes. But yeah, so if there are any pregnant women listening, so you can continue to do your practice, but you need to take some the necessary precautions. Have your doctor's approval. You have to do it on your second trimester. Look for a teacher who's qualified
Right.
and trained to teach, pregnant women, because there could be complications.
I totally agree with that. And so we spoke about children, we spoke about women, pregnant women. You mentioned about corporate dynamic people who want to do. How about older people who haven't done it, and they want to start at 55, 60, 65?
I'm the perfect example of
Really?
an old person starting yoga at an old age. I was 52 when I trained to become a yoga teacher.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I hadn't realized that.
Yeah, I was the oldest in my class, and my classmates were like 25, very flexible bodies. And so I don't think age is a barrier to starting this practice.
Can I repeat that? So age is not at all a barrier to start yoga, right?
I started at 47, and
Yeah,
then I
so-
became a teacher at 52 after 5 years.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, so I
Very
said,
inspiring.
yeah, well, yeah. So yeah, and then there are people who at that age are still very mobile and flexible. Some may not be as mobile, and there are some styles that will be suitable for
And
them.
you could, I believe in yoga, it's preventive. So even if they have already had some challenges, at least you could do enough to make sure it doesn't, compound or it doesn't aggravate, right?
Yeah, and then there's always a room to modify. You don't always have to do, as we say in class, the full posture. Just do what you can, what your body will
I think
allow.
that's the beauty of yoga, isn't it? I've heard it everywhere.
You
It doesn't-
adapt.
You adapt as your body adapts it, right? Like, and as it seems fit for the body.
Correct. But sometimes, the mindset of the students is what it's our enemy. You were talking, I heard you earlier about the monkey mind, right? We want to look like the Instagram photos, even if our bodies are not really in that, in that space. So it's more them. The teachers would normally advise and say, okay, just do what you can. But sometimes students would want to, I'm seeing my
Especially-
classmate and she can do this. Why can't I do that?
So maybe that's where I think a yoga teacher can also guide. Each one has his or her own core potential or core competency, right?
Correct.
You could be special, maybe not necessarily in what your neighbor is doing, but you could do something else differently or better way, right?
This is now the yoga of the mind.
See, there you go.
Not
Yoga
the
is all
body.
about the mind,
Yeah,
right?
so like you think you want to do that, but you also have to understand how your body can adapt to that posture and to accept where you are at the moment. Like, okay, right now, this is what my body allows. Maybe in a month or two, I can be more flexible and I can go further into the pose. And it's okay because I think that's one of the things that yoga teaches you is like, first of all, patience, to wait for things to happen, and resilience to rise up and, when you fall, try again. So these are the lessons that you learn on the mat, which may not necessarily be physical. And I think this is what gets people hooked into the practice. They don't really see it, but it happens gradually.
Gradually.
Like a stealth mode kind of thing. It creeps on you and suddenly you realize, I'm more patient now. or I'm less attached or something like that. So it just happens.
Again, an important word you bring again, less attached, right? Because in one of my other podcasts, I was explaining how one of the definition of yoga says that detachment from both success and failure, you know, is one path to yoga.
It is what it is. That's actually.
And you can testify that as an experience, right? Now
Definitely.
coming to another part, I want you to share your experience, or you know what you can tell us, let us know. Yoga is never alone. It's always meant, it's combined with breathing techniques, right? Now, how do you see that, or how could you help us understand that better?
Yeah, I think I just like remember that one of the things that students normally do, or it's like their practice, because they're used to maybe doing sports or going to the gym before they come into yoga. So the first thing they do is before they go to class is they will eat a lot. They will eat a lot because they feel like they need the energy from food to go into yoga, right? And so that's the first thing we ask when we do an orientation. When was the last time you ate? Yeah. What was the last meal that you took? Because otherwise they're gonna be, puking in class with all the postures and the twists and the bends. And so we try to explain that when you do yoga, the energy is different. No, you don't not necessarily derive it from food, but it comes from your breath. So with that understanding, then there's a shift in the way they would approach their practice.
So you say something so important, that while practicing yoga, energy actually is derived from breathing, right? So, and that's the reason why people actually after doing yoga, they don't feel hungry, right?
Correct.
They feel more charged and more, energetic. In fact, I have done mistakes few times, do it late in the night and then struggle to sleep. Yeah.
Depends on your practice. If it's very dynamic, then it wakes you up.
Correct.
But
correct.
it's a more...
Yeah, I mean, there are different ways.
yeah.
There are a few, I think, designed to
put you to sleep.
right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So, and now, so you said you closed your yoga studio. And so what was the reason? And are you still connected with yoga? Or how have you evolved with yoga in your current, something a little about your current life? Yeah.
Okay, so when the pandemic happened, ironically, one of the first things they closed were health clubs.
Because there were people,
Yeah, when that was the one thing I felt we needed at that time, increase your immunity, keep you healthy, but you can't do it in public and with a lot of people. That was the restriction. So we were very agile, I think. The lockdown was declared, I think around mid-March of 2020. Within a week, we were already doing classes on Facebook. That was the first platform.
Oh, so you went virtual?
Yes,
Awesome.
Immediately. So Facebook Live, we were doing, if I'm not mistaken, one class a day, at least, just to keep the engagement with our clients. Right. And just to continue their practice until we found the right platform where we can deliver classes virtually. Now, at the time, teachers were not prepared. They didn't have cameras, they didn't have lights, they didn't have microphones. Shopee was not as popular as it was now. It was hard to get equipment.
The virtual world wasn't as dominant as it is now.
So you can see the quality of the classes at that time, where like the lighting was very poor. Sometimes you can hardly see the teacher. You hear the noise around the neighborhood as they were teaching from their homes. But yeah, we were doing our classes online up until Feb 2024. So we closed our doors at the end of February this year. I think the landscape has changed. Competition is very different. Customer behavior is very different. The virtual world opened up, the whole world to everybody everywhere. You can take classes in the US, you could, you know, learn
That-
from any teacher.
Yeah, that's I
anywhere.
think that's the advantage or the plus side of this, right?
Yeah.
That we became so global.
Correct.
And our reach is now crossing, boundaries, geographical boundaries, right?
Correct. But it also, how shall I say, in a way, it helped the consumer because many teachers were offering classes for free. So you can do yoga for free. But as a business, that was a challenge, right? So how do you compete now with free classes when you are
Got it.
charging for
Yeah.
subscription? And you're charging for subscription, competing with big names like Nike, Apple, Adidas, all these big names. They had their yoga classes. And you know, they're doing yoga, even if they're charging you for a yoga club of sorts, it wasn't their main source of income. It was marketing. So, I mean, for them, even if they just charge $50 a year, that was already a good income for something which they would spend money on anyway for marketing. But for a small company like Yoga Plus, we will not survive on $50 a year.
Correct. Yeah, so it'll be what I'm going to ask you now is what is your way forward? What are you thinking? Where you can focus on how you feel that, and this is an opportunity for you to even, market that, we have people who why should they be doing it? And do you have any plans to reach to the corporate world, business world, etc.? So now that you've closed your studio, what are you planning to do regarding yoga? I mean, is it stopped or you want to do something different about it, or you still are keen to bring this or take it around Philippines in a little larger scale?
Personally, I've also, I would say, moved to a different field. When the pandemic happened, I discovered about energy healing, energy management. So I moved to Ilocos Sur. I uprooted myself from the city life to become, to take on a more rural kind of lifestyle up in the bundoks of Ilocos Sur. So which is where I've been living now for the last almost 4 years, learning about energy management, and which is now what I teach to executives, busy executives, to corporates, to employees, to leaders, on how they can really find more balance. Because I think the pandemic sort of derailed a lot of us, We didn't know what hit us, and a lot of us got thrown into something maybe they were not prepared for. So there's a lot of disruption in many different ways, and people, I feel, are still reeling from that experience, trying to find, where they're going to go next. And what I'm doing now is more along the lines of mentoring and helping people find more balance in their lives, aside from work and career. Because normally, you know that, like in corporate, we talk about work-life balance. But where I'm associated with, which is the Wisdom Institute for Leadership in Global Advancement, which was the organization founded by Master Delpe, we talk about 5 key areas of life, which is work, career, health, contribution to society or the environment, and our spiritual life. So often when we only focus on the 2 aspects, which is work and life, health gets neglected. So we see a lot of corporate executives now very sick,
True.
Hypertension, diabetes,
Bigger problems. I mean, I'm not going to call out,
some
but I
even
have,
cancer, heart diseases, very young age.
At young age. I was just saying, I'm not going to call out. I've had friends, or we have had people whom we knew, and we suddenly hear like something which really saddens us, that young age and what's going on. Now, I just got a little, fascinated by when you said energy executives corporate world, energy healing, and this. How do you explain that? Because if I go and tell someone, you know what, energy healing will change something in your life in a corporate world, it may not, they may not be able to resonate with that. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, so we approach it more from the perspective of using energy management as a tool to help them with balancing their life in those 5 key areas. So we have, Master has created a framework where we can measure. So, corporate types, they like that. They like metrics, they like data. So, okay, let's come up with your baseline. Where are you now? How much time do you spend at work? How much time do you spend for these different aspects of your life? And like in the next 6 months, how do you want this to look like? Or in the next year, how do you want this to look like? And then we help them go from point A to B using some of our tools, some of our frameworks to get them there. And if there is some health issue or challenges, like typically they're very stressed, of course, fatigue, burnout, or some medical condition, then we can use energy management to help heal that as part of the whole mentoring process. Because when there's something bothering you physically, it's hard to make some changes in the other aspects of your life. You have to address that first. We also use those tools and strategies to help fast track certain behavior or character modifications. For example, if one of your concerns is, let's say, managing anger, so a lot of executives have
The most common problem.
problem, right? So you may be aware that that is your problem, okay?
But you're not able to control it.
Yes. So one of the ways we can help with that is through healing. So healing the aspect of your life probably that caused this kind of behavior pattern, healing whatever circumstances you had in your past, in your family that contributed to this, any patterns. So the power of energy science or energy medicine to help to fast track that change, that development, or that shift in your behavior will make the change much faster than doing it on your own with just the awareness. Yeah.
So, just to get a little deeper understanding, so when you say energy, healing, what is expected out of the other person? Is there a practice they'll need to do, or it is all about just continuous talking, speaking, counseling, or there are special skills which you use, and how much is the involvement of the other person? Like in yoga, you have to make
client,
somebody exercise, right?
Yeah.
So something like that.
Very good question. In our system, which is called Be Well Science, the client participates so that you are also investing in your own self-healing. So during the session, you will do exercises, which we will teach you, which is a combination of some yoga movements, martial arts, breathing techniques that allows energy to flow in the body. And if there's anything that's stuck, that could be eliminated or unblocked so that energy will flow. We know that disease starts when there's something that doesn't move in the body, right? So that's one way. There's also breathing techniques that we teach. So these are what we call life tools. And then we have a healing meditation. So that's what the client will do. Exercise, breathing techniques, and healing meditation within the session as the healer is performing the protocol. So this is all done remotely, by the way. It can be done on Zoom.
That's very convenient, right?
Yeah. You don't have to come to a particular location. So if you can be in the office, you can be at home, you could be traveling, and you can be having a session with your healer. There's also, I think what is also unique in the way we do it is we also have a coaching or mentoring within any healing session, because change will eventually be required, either behavioral change, lifestyle change, to affect the healing on a more permanent or longer term basis, and not just a one-off, right? So what led you to this kind of condition? Maybe your own character, your own temper, whatever. So we try and help you to shift and find out what's causing the stress, to help you get past that so that you can shift your attitude, shift your behavior, and see that everything is something that you can manage, right? So I just had recently a client, and she's hypertensive, and the main source of her problem is her boss. So she doesn't have a very good relationship with her boss, but now she's able to manage it because now she sees that, you know, she can do something about it and not just be like a victim. I'm always like, I'm not the favorite of my boss, so he always nitpicks on my work and etc. etc. So we managed to coach her.
So the
that
boss has not changed.
we bless the boss also.
That's what I'm saying. That it's a great process where you don't have to quit, you don't have to resign.
Yep.
Either the boss doesn't need to change. Everything remains the same.
But your attitude, your mindset,
The power of the mind.
correct. So we just say, okay, when the boss is like losing his temper, you just bless him.
Wow.
Bless him. And then just do your work.
So you play on a different level field, I would say, right? The energy field, what you call. And that works, right? Yeah, so all the best. I think this is very interesting. And I'm sure we'll have you back with more experiences as you achieve. Because this is something I'm sure is going to help and make many people more curious to know.
I hope
and
so.
try it. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yep.
So thank
We
you.
have, it's about time that, you know, as artificial intelligence is becoming more, you know, at the forefront of things that are happening in the world, we should also be looking at spiritual intelligence.
That's amazing, right?
Yeah.
So
We have
it's
the
artificial
spiritual tools.
intelligence and spiritual intelligence. Yeah, I think this could definitely this is going to raise some eyebrows, but let it generate some curiosity, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Thank you, Dinah, so much.
Thanks,
It was
Aparna.
an absolute pleasure having you here, and I know you came all the way from Ilocos. So I hope you enjoy your stay here in Manila, and we'll catch up soon again.
Thank you so much.
Anything for our viewers?
Well, you know, just life is good. We have so many blessings. We don't have to focus too much on our problems. We can always find help. And if you need us, you know, I'm sure Aparna will put my contact details somewhere in this video.
Sure, I will.
Please, I will be happy to help.
Thank you, viewers. I hope you had some interesting time with our special guest. So, as promised, this is a series based on the yoga enlightenment with the Yoga International Day, coming close. I'm sure, you would look forward to many other interesting topics, what will bring it with information where you wouldn't get anywhere else except the Soul Yatra unfolds. So don't forget to like, subscribe and ring the notification bell, and of course share. Thank you.